all of these individuals are left outside of the protection of the law. The judicial system has been unable to protect them from human rights abuses and has been unable to provide them redress when human rights abuses do occur. And as Joma mentioned, even though the People's Court has been abolished, the State Security Court essentially has established a parallel legal system where such individuals who are deemed to be political cases or politically sensitive cases, those that criticize the authorities or those that are suspected of involvement in terrorism-related activities, are tried in proceedings that do not meet international standards of fair trial. And just as an example of what kind of people get tried in this special court, most of us know the case of Idris Bufayed, Jamal al-Haji, and others who received sentences of up to 25 years for seeking to organize a peaceful demonstration. And what's even more concerning is that those who dare to raise concern about their treatment in detention, such as Jamal al-Haji, have faced reprisals. Jamal al-Haji is now facing trial on accusations of bringing the judiciary into disrepute or insulting the judiciary merely for having written to the equivalent of the Minister of Justice saying that while he was detained, he has faced human rights abuses and violations. And we as Amnesty have adopted him as a prisoner of conscience and are calling for his immediate release, and that would be a sign from the Libyan authorities that they're serious about addressing human rights violations. Even in other cases where there is lots of international pressure, Libyan authorities violate fundamental human rights. And here I'm referring to the case of the 2 Swiss nationals that have been prevented from leaving Libya from July of 2008 in what seems to be a political reprisal due to the arrest of Hannibal al-Gaddafi and his wife in Geneva. These 2 individuals are essentially confined to the Swiss embassy. They have been victims of what amounted to enforced disappearance for about a month and a half a few months ago, and they have been tried in proceedings that do not meet international fair standards. The reason I raise this case is because that these 2 individuals have the protection or the diplomatic power of Switzerland behind them. The UN High Commissioner of Human Rights has condemned the move. International community has been following this case closely, and yet these 2 individuals have not had their rights protected. So what happens to Libyan nationals who don't have the same protection and the same attention given to their cases? Of particular concern of all these human rights violations is that they are conducted in a climate of virtually total impunity. And in order to address this and to send a strong message to the international community that Libya is serious about improving its human rights record, we would call on the Libyan authorities to address 2 cases that have received lots of international attention. I'm referring to the case of Fathi Jahmi, who is Libya's best known political dissident, who has passed away in an untimely fashion in May of last year. Calls to conduct independent investigations into circumstances surrounding his death after 6 years that he has spent in custody for speaking out against human rights abuses in Libya have been unmet to date. The other case that has received considerable international attention is that of the reported suicide of Sheikh al-Libi in the Abu Salim prison. Now, Sheikh al-Libi was transferred by the US authorities in late 2005-2006 in the framework of the war on terror. Now, the Libyan authorities said that they have opened an investigation, and within a few days they have confirmed that he had committed suicide. However, they refused to provide a copy of the autopsy report and have not allowed an Amnesty International delegation who happened to be in Libya a week after the reported suicide to see these records. It's particularly important to conduct an impartial investigation into this incident in light of the possible returns of other Libyan nationals who are currently held in Guantanamo and whose returns to Libya we oppose until the results of this investigation are made public. A case that has received less international attention, as Ramar mentioned, is that of the Abu Slim prison incident of 1996.
Let's just stop you for a minute. I think Daniel has to go for a vote. It'll come back after the vote, and then so you can answer the question. So Daniel, that's fine. Sorry.
For the Abu Slim prison incident, the Libyan authorities have announced in September that they have appointed a judge to investigate this incident, but to date the mandate of this investigation and any other information has not been disclosed. This particular incident, as well as the enforced disappearances of individuals in the 1980s and 1990s, such as that of Aizat Yusuf al-Mahdi, which we'll hear from his son just now, are a precondition into addressing the legacy of the past. Now, looking ahead, I strongly believe that security forces in Libya need to be subject to independent oversight and fully accountable for their action to ensure that such grave human rights abuses are not repeated in Libya today and in the future, that they are brought under the jurisdiction of the Ministry of Interior, which today has absolutely no oversight of their actions. Also, the independence of the judiciary in Libya is integral to ensure better administration of justice and the protection of human rights, but not only the protection of human rights. The business sector is also quite touched by that in order to ensure that contracts are maintained and there's a greater climate of transparency in Libya. Finally, an issue that I haven't addressed at great length in this presentation, but that is absolutely integral, is the respect to freedom of expression, association, and assembly in law and in practice in Libya, including allowing the registration of independent human rights NGOs, which are absent today in Libya. In other words, the creation of a climate where Libyan citizens can freely discuss and debate their views and hopes about their daily lives, including the domestic human rights situation. And until that is reality, I think talk of reform seems hollow.
Thank you very much, Diana. Now, our next speaker is Tom Porteus, Tom's just handed this report to me, which is Human Rights Watch report on Libya, Truth and Justice Can't Wait. And if any of you or all of you visit their website, I'm sure you will get this report.
There's also a few copies down at the end there for your poster.
And so, again, when I was praising the work of Amnesty International and also thanking them, I also want to thank Tom, Human Rights Watch, for the brilliant work that you do and protecting human rights, or at least raising concerns of abuses of human rights around the world. Tom, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you very much, Lord Ahmed. And Oliver Miles was talking earlier about the importance of understanding Libya in its regional context. And in fact, last time I shared a platform, we were chairing a session on Syria. In many ways, Syria and Libya share some important characteristics when it comes both to the engagement of the international community with them and also to their internal human rights records, which both leave a lot to be desired. As I said, we've just released, as Lord Ahmed said, we've just released a report on Libya and copies of it. There are a few copies, probably not enough, certainly not enough, but you can download it from our website down there. And we very much wanted to release the report in Tripoli, but we thought it probably wouldn't be possible, so we went ahead and made arrangements to release it in Cairo. But we heard that Saif al-Islam al-Gaddafi, the Muammar Gaddafi's son, was in London and that he was ready to talk to us about 2 weeks before we were due to launch the report. So I was sent to see him to see whether I could persuade him to make arrangements for us to be able to hold the press conference, hold the launch of the report in Tripoli.